Hello, darlings. I looked up the story from the last reading, Clauden's Mimile, and it's a story about a German officer in love with a mountain farmer's daughter. And the book was seen as erotic and lewd and trashy, and because it focused just, I guess, on life for life's sake instead of teaching the people some higher moral standard of living. And I did try and find an English copy because we would have paused here and maybe took a side quest, or maybe after this took a side quest, and there's no English translations really available, I don't think. Sad, 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 sad. I want to read some lewd German 1800s literature. What did they consider lewd in the 1800s? Okay, here we go. The three girls soon made friends. They were in the same class and slept together in the same large room at the top of the house. What delightful, cozy times they had going to bed. They gossiped while they undressed, in undertones, however, for it was 10 o'clock, and next door Mademoiselle Popinette had gone to bed to dream of burglars. Eva Ewers slept with her. Eva was a little hamburger whose father, an amateur painter and collector, had settled in Munich. The striped brown blinds were down. The low, red-shaded lamp burned on the table. There was a faint smell of violets and fresh wash, and a delicious atmosphere of laziness and dreams. Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. Let me highlight that so I can put the quote on a t-shirt or something. And a delicious atmosphere of laziness and dreams. Heaven, said Armgard, half undressed, sitting on her bed. How Dr. Newman can talk. He comes into the class and stands by the table and tells about Racine. He has a lovely high forehead, remarked Gerda, standing before the mirror between the windows and combing her hair by the light of 2 candles. Oh, yes, hasn't he? Armgard said eagerly. And are you taking the course just on his account, Armgard? You gaze at him all the time with your blue eyes, as if... Are you in love with him? Asked Tony. I can't undo my shoelace. Please, Gerda. Thanks. Why don't you marry him? He is a good match. He will get to be a high school professor. I think you are both horrid. I am not in love with him, and I would not marry a teacher anyhow. I shall marry a country gentleman. A nobleman? Tony dropped her stocking and looked thoughtfully into Armgard's face. I don't know yet, but he must have a large estate. Oh, girls, I just love that sort of thing. I shall get up at 5 o'clock every morning and attend to everything. She pulled up the bed covers and stared dreamily at the ceiling. 500 cows are before your mind's eye, said Gerda, looking at her in the mirror. Tony was not ready yet, but she let her head fall on the pillow, tucked her hands behind her neck, and gazed dreamily at the ceiling in her turn. Of course, she said, I shall marry a businessman. He must have a lot of money so we can furnish elegantly. I owe that to my family and the firm, she added earnestly. Yes, you'll see, that's what I shall do. Gerda had finished her hair for the night and was brushing her big white teeth, using the ivory-backed hand mirror to see them better. I shall probably not marry at all, she said, speaking with some difficulty on account of the tooth powder. I don't see why I should. I am not anxious. I'll go back to Amsterdam and play duets with Daddy and afterwards live with my married sister. What a pity, Tony said briskly. What a pity. You ought to marry here and stay here for always. Listen, you could marry one of my brothers. The one with the big nose? Asked Gerda, and gave a dainty little yawn, holding the hand mirror before her face. Or the other, it doesn't matter. You could furnish beautifully. Jacobs could do it, the upholster in Fish Street. He has a lovely taste. I'd come to see you every day. But then there came the voice of Mademoiselle Popinette. It said, Oh, mesdemoiselles, please go to bed. It is too late to get married any more this evening. Sundays and holidays Tony spent in Meng Street or outside the town with her grandparents. How lovely when it was fine on Easter Sunday, hunting for eggs and marzipan hares in the enormous Kroger garden. Then there were the summer holidays at the seashore. They lived in the Kerr house, ate at the table d'hôte, bathed, and went donkey riding. Some seasons when the consul had business, there were long journeys, but Christmases were best of all. There were 3 present givings, at home, at the grandparents', and at Sesame's, where Bishop flowed in streams. The one at home was the grandest, for the consul believed in keeping the holy feast with pomp and ceremony. They gathered in the landscape room with due solemnity. The servants and the crowd of poor people thronged into the pillared hall, where the consul went about shaking their purple hands. Then outside rose the voices of the choir boys from St. Mary's in a quartet, and one's heart beat loudly with awe and expectation. The smell of the Christmas tree was already coming through the crack in the great white folding doors, and the Frau Consul took the old family Bible with the funny big letters and slowly read aloud the Christmas chapter. And after the choir boys had sung another carol, everybody joined in O Tannenbaum and went in solemn procession through the hall into the great salon, hung with tapestries that had statuary woven into them. There the tree rose to the ceiling, decorated with white lilies, twinkling and sparkling and pouring out light and fragrance, and the table with the presents on it stretched from the windows to the door. Outside, the Italians with the barrel organ were making music in the frozen, snowy streets, and a great hubbub came over from the Christmas market in Market Square. All the children except little Clara stopped up to late supper in the salon, and there were mountains of carp and stuffed turkey. In these years, Toni Buddenbrook visited 2 Mecklenburg estates. She stopped for 2 weeks one summer with her friend Armgard on Herr von Schilling's property, which lay on the coast across the bay from Travemünde, and another time she went with cousin Tilda to a place where Bernard Buddenbrook was inspector. This estate was called Thankless, because it did not bring in a penny's income, but for a summer holiday it was not to be despised. Thus the years went on. It was, take it all in all, a happy youth for Toni. Part 3, Chapter 1. On a June afternoon, not long after 5 o'clock, the family were sitting before the portal in the garden, where they had drunk coffee. They had pulled the rustic furniture outside, for it was too close in the whitewashed garden house, with its tall mirror decorated with painted birds and its varnished folding doors, which were really not folding doors at all and had only painted latches. The consul, his wife, Toni, Tom, and Clotilde sat in a half circle around the table, which was laid with its usual shining service. Christian, sitting a little to one side, conned the second oration of Cicero against Catiline. He looked unhappy. The consul smoked his cigar and read the advertiser. His wife had let her embroidery fall into her lap and sat smiling at little Clara, the child, with Ida Youngman, was looking for violets in the grass plot. Toni, her head propped on both hands, was deep in Hoffmann's Serapion Brethren, while Tom tickled her in the back of the neck with the grass blade, an attention which she very wisely ignored. And Clotilde, looking thin and old maidish in her flowered cotton frock, was reading a story called Blind, Deaf, Dumb, and Still Happy. As she read, she scraped up the biscuit crumbs carefully with all 5 fingers from the cloth and ate them. A few white clouds stood motionless in the slowly paling sky. The small town garden, with its carefully laid out paths and beds, looked gay and tidy in the afternoon sun. The scent of the mignonette borders floated up now and then. "Well, Tom," said the consul expansively, and took the cigar out of his mouth, "we are arranging that rye sale I told you about with Van Hectum and Company. What is he giving? Tom asked with interest, ceasing to tickle Tony. 60 thaler for 1,000 kilo. Not bad, eh? That's very good. Tom knew this was excellent. Oh, that's very good. Tom knew this was excellent business. Tony, your position is not comme il faut. I don't know what that means. I'm sorry, it's in French, remarked the Frau Consul. Whereat Tony, without raising her eyes from her book, took one elbow off the table. So maybe it means her position is bad. The way she's sitting is bad. Never mind, Tom said. She can sit how she likes. She will always be Tony Buddenbrook. Tilda and she are certainly the beauties of the family. Clotilde was astonished almost to death. Good gracious, Tom, she said. It was inconceivable how she could drawl out the syllables. Tony bore the jeer in silence. It was never any use. Tom was much more than a match for her. He could always get the last word and have the laugh on his side. Her nostrils dilated a little, and she shrugged her shoulders. But when the consul's wife began to talk of the coming dance at the house of Consul Junius, and let fall something about new patent leather shoes, Tony took the other elbow off the table and displayed a lively interest. You keep talking and talking, complained Christian fretfully, and I'm having such a hard time. I wish I were a businessman. Yes, you're always wanting something different, said Tom. Anton came across the garden with a card on his tray. They all looked at him expectantly. Grünlich, agent, read the consul. He is from Hamburg, an agreeable man, and well recommended, the son of a clergyman. I have business dealings with him. There is a piece of business now. Is it all right, Betsy, if I ask him to come out now? Come out here. A middle-sized man, his head thrust a little forward of his body, carrying his hat and stick in one hand, came across the garden. He was some 32 years old. He wore a fuzzy greenish-yellow suit with a long skirted coat and gray worsted gloves. His face, beneath the sparse light hair, was rosy and smiling, but there was an undeniable wart on one side of his nose. His chin and upper lip were smooth shaven. He wore long, drooping side whiskers in the English fashion, and these adornments were conspicuously golden yellow in color. Even at a distance, he began making obsequious gestures with his broad-brimmed gray hat, and as he drew near, he took one last very long step and arrived describing a half-circle with the upper part of his body, by this means bowing to them all at once. I am afraid I am disturbing the family circle, he said in a soft voice, with the utmost delicacy of manner. You are conversing. You are indulging in literary pursuits. I must really beg your pardon for my intrusion. By no means, my dear Herr Grunlich, said the consul. He and his sons got up and shook hands with the stranger. You are very welcome. I am delighted to see you outside the office and in my family circle. Herr Grunlich, Betsy, a friend of mine and a keen man of business. This is my daughter Antony and my niece Clotilde. Thomas you know already, and this is my second son, Christian, in high school. Herr Grunlich responded to each name with an inclination of the body. I must repeat, he said, that I have no desire to intrude. I came on business. If the Herr Consul would be so good as to take a walk with me round the gardens. The consul's wife answered, It will give us pleasure to have you sit down with us for a little before you begin to talk business with my husband. Do sit down. 1,000 thanks, said Herr Grunlich, apparently quite flattered. He sat down on the edge of the chair which Tom brought, laid his hat and stick on his knees, and settled himself, running his hand over his long beard with a little hemming and hawing, as if to say, Well, now that we've got past the introduction, what next? The Frau Consul began the conversation. You live in Hamburg? She asked, inclining her head and letting her work fall to her lap. Yes, Frau Consul, responded Herr Grunlick with a fresh bow. At least my house is in Hamburg, but I am on the road a good deal. My business is very flourishing, ahem, if I may be permitted to say so. The Frau Consul lifted her eyebrows and made respectful motions with her mouth, as if she were saying, "Ah, indeed?" "Ceaseless activity is a condition of my being," added he, half turning to the consul. He coughed again as he noticed that Fraulein Antoni's glance rested upon him. She gave him, in fact, the cold, calculating stare with which a maiden measures a strange young man, a stare which seems always on the point of passing over into actual contempt. "We have relatives in Hamburg," she said, in order to be saying something. "The Duchamps," explained the consul, "the family of my late mother." "Oh, yes," Herr Grundlich hastened to say. "I have the honor of a slight acquaintance with the family. They are very fine people in mind and heart. Ahem. This would be a better world if there were more—" He coughed, not me. It says ahem. "This would be a better world if there were more families like them in it. They have religion, benevolence, and genuine piety. In short, they are my ideal of the true Christ-like spirit, and in them it is united to a rare degree with a brilliant cosmopolitanism, an elegance, and aristocratic bearing, which I find most attractive, Frau Consul." Tony thought, "How can he know my father and mother so well? He is saying exactly what they like best to hear." The consul responded approvingly. "The combination is one that is becoming in everybody." And the Frau Consul could not resist stretching out her hand to their guest with her sweeping gesture, palm upward, while the bracelets gave a little jingle. "You speak as though you read my inmost thoughts, dear Herr Grunlich," she said. Upon which Herr Grunlich, it's probably Grunlich, made another deep bow, settled himself again, stroked his beard, and coughed as if to say, "Well, let us get on." The Frau Consul mentioned the disastrous fire which had swept Hamburg in May of the year 1842. "Yes, indeed," said Herr Grunlich, "truly a fearful misfortune, a distressing visitation. The loss amounted to 135 millions at a rough estimate. I am grateful to Providence that I came off without any loss whatever. The fire raged chiefly in the parishes of St. Peter and St. Nicholas. What a charming garden!" He interrupted himself, taking the cigar which the consul offered. "It is so large for a town garden, and the beds of color are magnificent. I confess my weakness for flowers and for nature in general. Those climbing roses over there trim up the garden uncommonly well." He went on, praising the refinement of the location, praising the town itself, praising the consul's cigar. He had a pleasant word for each member of the circle. "May I venture to inquire what you are reading, Fraulein Antony?" he said, smiling. Tony drew her brows together sharply at this, for some reason, and answered without looking at him, "Hoffmann's Serapion Brethren." "Really? He is a wonderful writer, is he not? Ah, pardon me. I forgot the name of your younger son, Frau Consul." "Christian." "A beautiful name, if I may so express myself." Here he turned again to the consul. "I like best the names which show that the bearer is a Christian. The name of Johann, I know, is hereditary in your family, a name which always recalls the beloved discipline. My own name, if I may be permitted to mention it," he continued, waxing eloquent, "is that of most of my forefathers, Bendix. It can only be regarded as a shortened form of Benedict. And you, Herr Buddenbrook, are reading? Ah, Cicero, The works of this great Roman orator, making pretty difficult reading, eh? Oh, no, wait, this is Latin. I'm not even going to try to do Latin. Yes, I am. Quousque tandem Catalina. That was him again, not me. Oh, I have not forgotten quite all my Latin. I disagree with my late father on this point, the consul said. I have always objected to the perpetual occupation of young heads with Greek and Latin, when there are so many other important subjects necessary as a preparation for the practical affairs of life. You take the words out of my mouth, Herr Grunlich hastened to say. It is hard reading, and not by any means always unexceptionable. I forgot to mention that point. Everything else aside, I can recall passages that were positively offensive. Oh no, to me this dude either sounds like oh, there's our alarm. He either sounds like a swindler, like a gaslighter, a manipulator, or just a plain old kiss ass. Should we read one more? Let's read one more paragraph. There came a pause, and Tony thought, now it's my turn. Herr Grunlich had turned his gaze upon her, and sure enough, he suddenly started in his chair, made a spasmodic but always highly elegant gesture toward the Frau Consul, and whispered ardently, Pray look, Frau Consul, I beg of you. Fraulein, I implore you. He interrupted himself aloud, just as if Tony could not hear the rest of what he said. To keep in that same position for just a moment. Do you see, he began whispering again, how the sunshine is playing in your daughter's hair? Never, he said solemnly, as if transported, speaking to nobody in particular. Have I seen more beautiful hair? It was as if he were addressing his remarks to God or to his own soul. I guess we shall see what happens with this gentleman.